All right, welcome back. Dave, we're going to talk about some stuff tonight. It's going to be an interesting conversation, I'm sure, because we've already been going for, I don't know, it feels like 90 minutes on this topic, going back and forth. Hey, what about this? What about that? Can we actually say this? We'll see how this goes.
All right, send it.
So we want to talk about the idea of willingness, that we often say you can't teach willingness. Well, what do we mean by that? First of all, what is willingness? And then why can't we teach it? Let's have you take a stab at it. What do we mean by willingness?
This is something we've been saying for quite a bit.
Years now.
In our models and in our trying to mentor other. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Leadership. Mentoring other leaders. And a recurring theme that is always, we always eventually get to it, regardless of what the topic is that no matter what we're going to.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
I don't think people really know what they think that means.
No, but we're not having the leadership conversation tonight. We're talking about willingness.
Right. Every conversation we end up having, regardless of topic, regardless if it's about math or it's about a feeling on something, or if it's an interpretation of our experiences that we're just trying to hand down, is that we can give this to you, the immediate applicability of something, because that's always come back. That we want the objective of what is we're teaching is that you can take this now and go apply it. But you have to go apply it now. Enter John Boyd's OODA loop.
Yep.
You have to observe orientation, which we're going to do a heavy breakdown on. And you have to have the courage to then make a decision, and then further courage to have an action. But so many decisions live inside somebody's head. Like, right. I thought about this, or I'm thinking about this, or I'm ruminating about this, but where's the decision and where's the action?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the willingness piece. Like, do you even have the willingness to change your orientation? Do you have the willingness to learn? And then apply what you have learned and actually have it turn into something in the outside world to have an effect.
So the way that this conversation came about is that you suggested to me that willingness is rare.
Yes.
And I pushed back on that because, at least I think, everybody has willingness, and it's a byproduct of their orientation. Everybody is willing to do something. It's that most people are willing to do the easy things. What's rare is the willingness to do the hard things. That most people don't have the orientation that will push them to do something that is difficult. And what's difficult? Getting into the gym is difficult. Earning money is difficult. Developing your ability to interact with people and read the room, becoming proficient at game, that is difficult. Ergo, I'm using that word, ergo, most people, even though they are willing, are going to be willing to be invisible. They're not willing to move in the other directions to help them become more influential. That's the way that I see it, is that everybody is willing to do something, but only a few are willing to put in the hard work to do the hard things.
That's attaining a mastery. And someone looking at it from the outside, it looks like magic. If you don't understand what's happening, one, if someone makes something look easy, then it looks easy, but it's not. It took so many reps and so many opportunities of success and failure for them to figure out what works. So when someone's looking at someone, even these examples that we've been using from a power and influence, which is subcategory leadership, you see someone in action, taking care of others. You're ready for it. Leading. It looks like a natural state. And in some ways it may be, but we can reverse engineer that and go, well, this is why this is effective. And someone who hasn't had it figured out, we can teach, well, this is how this should look. But just because I give you the answer doesn't mean that you're going to do anything with it. The 1 in 100 will. And we broke down a quote attributed to Heraclides, which you've come up with some interesting math.
Yeah.
As we sat down in a session and you were very excited that you used another model. All models are wrong. Some are useful. This one is useful. And you put Heraclides numbers through a crunch, taking a look at this quote was attributed at a time a long time ago. I mean, in history.
Yeah. 2,500 years ago. Yeah.
Where these men were trained to be warriors. So even 1 out of 100 trained warriors, one of them would bring the others home.
Yeah. 80 shouldn't even be there, right? They're just cannon fodder. The 10 are just targets. 9 make the battle. But one
is the warrior. And
one is the warrior, and he will bring the others home. Yes.
And we discussed that. I think it's even less now.
Yeah, now it is. Because...
But you have some great math on this.
Yeah, I do.
Which we will break out. So another thread to drop, to pull on for the willingness piece. Because I truly believe in the math can support that willingness is rare. There's so much good information out there on all kinds of different topics, right?
Yes.
Like we can use the fitness piece, for example, but there's also a lot of stuff out there that is designed for churn.
Sure. To include fitness and money making, because other people are trying to increase their own survival and replication value, SMV and all those things, right? They're trying to increase their power and influence in the world. One of the ways to do that is to feed other people into their marketing funnel, their sales funnel, where they're going to purchase churn. And what do we mean by churn? It means that you get this product that by design is going to leave you dissatisfied at the end, but only just enough to where you feel like you want to come back for more. The perfect example is the infinite scroll on Facebook or Instagram or Reddit, or pick your favorite social media platform, right? The fact that you can infinitely scroll is a perfect example of churn, because there's nothing that's going to stop you. You can just keep going and going and going. But why do you stop? And when you stop, do you feel satisfied?
There's so much more to discover.
No, there's so much more. And so you come back again, and the little red dot, showing that you've got something more to look at, even though you know it's going to be something worthless
most of the time, right?
You know it,
right?
But that's churn. Another great example of churn is getting into a fitness program that doesn't deliver results, that gets you all hot and sweaty, right? But it doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't make you faster. It doesn't help you lose weight. P90X is the perfect example of churn in the fitness industry, right? It was by design meant to get people in, have them pay for the product, or Beachbody, which is like the successor to P90X or whatever. There are so many examples out there of fitness churn or health and nutrition churn. All of them leave you dissatisfied just enough to where you think that if you come back again, you're going to scratch that itch enough to where you'll be happy with the result.
Or it's by design. Something has been left out of it to place the blame on the operator.
Right.
Like, oh, well, this should have worked for you. You just didn't try hard enough.
Yeah. So
you just didn't do.
So try harder.
Yeah. Take more ownership.
You be more extreme in your ownership.
Take enough ownership for the failed product that you're trying to. But that's the thing with bad advice too.
Yeah, you weren't vulnerable enough.
Right.
So go be more vulnerable.
Go be more vulnerable.
You weren't authentic enough. Go be more authentic. Right? All of those things are examples of churn. But bringing it back to willingness is that people are willing to engage in that churn. Like, it is part of their orientation. They see something that they think is going to be valuable to them, and so they pursue it. They are willing to do that. The people who have designed these different products and services and ideas and advice, they have made it just easy enough that those people who are willing to engage in the easy things, not the hard things, the barriers to entry are low enough that people will do it. And so they get caught into this cycle of churn, these leadership development ideas, leadership training, right? Or again, fitness or nutrition. Yeah, like one of my favorite things to eat is a bag of flaming hot Cheetos. That thing is incredibly addictive.
You know, I've never had a bag of.
That's because you don't do spicy.
No, I get scared.
I love me a big old bag. Like, dude, like the full-size bag of flaming hot Cheetos, I can go through the whole thing in a sitting. But when I'm done, am I satisfied? No.
Are you not?
No. I could go for another one. That's churn. It is chemically designed to get you addicted to this thing. That's churn. And that's how willingness plays into it, is that people are willing to do the thing that's easy.
So how do you inspire people to be more willing
To do the hard thing?
to do the hard things?
Well, if we're saying that willingness is a product of orientation, then people have to change their orientation. And orientation being a combination of their hardware, which is very difficult to change. Not impossible, especially if we move in the direction of Ray Kurzweil's singularity is near, where biology merges with technology and we can change our hardware to be whatever we want, right? We're not there yet, but it's coming. Hardware is hard to change. Very difficult, but not impossible. Firmware, which is your education, the way that you were raised, society, the things that particular tribe values, that is your firmware. Still hard to change. I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world to move from Mississippi to California or wherever, or even to go somewhere else in the world, hashtag passport bros, right? You can go someplace else. It's just kind of hard to do, or not as difficult as changing your hardware. It's your software. It's your lived experience, the stuff that you are personally working on, your knowledge that you're gaining by watching a show like this. Watching this show is going to change your orientation little by little by little by little, right? The things that you consume, going back to nutrition, right? Exactly the same idea. The media, the content, the knowledge, and all those things that you consume, and then you put into practice are going to little by little change your orientation. And that is going to little by little help to develop your willingness to do the hard thing. I actually think that I should jump up here on the board real quick. We have not fully explained this, but we will at some point. This is the Boyd's energy maneuverability theory, right? That here he has altitude, right? And then here he has speed. And this enables you to draw, the doghouse diagram for aircraft, right? That the faster you go, the higher you go, you have this area of maneuver that you can work in, right? Well, for our purposes, this isn't speed. This is training, right? This is an altitude. This is value, right? So the better your training, the more your value, the greater your ability to maneuver. Thing is, if you don't have a lot of training, if you don't have a lot of value, and your maneuver diagram looks like this,
You have a very limited flight envelope.
yeah, you
Can't do what
you can't do what
trained and valuable
what
people
these
do.
people do. You may be willing, but you can't. Like, you can't. Little by little, you can
begin to increase your
increase it.
capabilities.
You can put in the effort on things that are of real import, like being willing to develop your mastery on like Fortnite or other video games may increase your value and your training for that very small tribe, the people that care about those things. But by and large, the rest of the world, or if there is a tribe that you want to get into that doesn't value those things, then this isn't going to help you. you're actually going to move it in the opposite direction. The things that will help you everywhere is get big. If you're a dude, get muscular, right? Get into the gym, get strong, get big and beautiful, right? If you're not healthy, get healthy within the constraints that your hardware allows, right? Recognizing that some people might not be able to. But those things are going to help you to grow your potential for training and value so that you can take that willingness that you are developing, that change to your orientation that is going to allow you to maneuver more and more and more over the course of time. Does that make sense?
Tracking.
So just a little thing for people to be thinking about is how your willingness will grow over time and help you to better maneuver as you increase your training and your value by changing your orientation.
When we first came out with this, man, we were pretty excited about being able to put it to this model, because what this is called, when Boyd put this together, this is maneuver warfare.
Yeah. He's not the first person to talk about maneuver warfare. Sun Tzu, Clausewitz talked about it. But Boyd was really the one to pull all those ideas together into this concept of maneuver warfare. What is maneuver? It's your ability to have options on how to engage the enemy, that it doesn't always have to be a full frontal attack. Maybe that is the right idea sometimes, but other times you may want to provide the frontal attack as a decoy that is going to set up your flanking movement, right? He took those same ideas of maneuver warfare and the actual battlefield and put it into what we call now the anthropic domain. But he was just talking about the way to win in business or to win in politics or anywhere is to outmaneuver the enemy.
Which requires skill, which you can't have unless you're willing to put in the reps. There's now just trying to taste it back to the willingness piece.
Yeah.
Willingness is rare. Things that I believe a lot of men and women that we've talked to about this think willingness is and is not. I think this idea, because we can apply this to the fitness realm, just showing up and touching the treadmill is a lot different than getting on it.
Yeah.
And then getting on it is, you got to increase the numbers. You got to maybe go further distance, or you got to up your intensity, but just your sheer proximity to the environment isn't enough.
It's a great place to start, though.
You have to show up, but there's certain levels of
showing up is going to get you the very small maneuver envelope.
The willingness to go, I need to be in this place, in this environment to learn this particular skill. Showing up, you show up. It's a requirement that you're there in the environment. But that is not enough. It's
right.
Not enough to tick the needle of the performance metric. But a lot of people want to anchor some kind of value on just showing up. That's the first step, but hold your applause. Glad you're here. Now you've actually got to work, and the work's going to hurt, in any pursuit of mastery.
Yeah, I'm glad that you bring up mastery, because where I was starting to go with that is Robert Greene's mastery, right? Where he talks about the first step is showing up, but also to apprentice yourself to the master. The master could be an actual individual. It could be the environment and what people are doing there. But in order to apprentice yourself, you have to be willing to let go of your preconceived notions. You have to essentially forget that you know anything, to behave as if you know nothing.
So you have to be aware of Dunning-Kruger effect as well.
Yeah.
And I see this, anyone who's a master of anything sees this.
Mm-hmm.
I teach pistol craft, I teach shooting.
Yeah.
I see a lot of men and women who carry pistols for a living. A lot of police officers, military types that will show up in a competition realm like USPSA. I shoot USPSA, and they're just in a different environment. But they had the willingness to show up,
yeah,
and to try their skills in a different dynamic environment. And a lot of those dudes and chicas get embarrassed and find out very quickly that the way that they were trained isn't enough to put points on the board in this realm. And a lot of
they thought that if they just show up with the most expensive pistol, or they wear the right clothing or whatever, right? They thought that the equipment was going to get them there.
This is in so many sports. It's so many different realms and so many different environments where you think you can cheat your way to a performance metric by way of throwing money at a problem. There's a passage, I believe it's in the Hagakure, the samurai wisdom book that I love, about it being shameful to die on the battlefield with an expensive sword.
Right.
Like, this is beautiful and it's glamorous, and some swordsmith, the only mastery in that death was the man that made the sword, but the would-be warrior didn't know how to yield it. So, you probably could have done more damage with a wooden training sword than the expensive. But we see this in all kinds of different places.
Sure.
But is that willingness? Willingness to spend the time, energy, effort into attaining some faux version of what you think mastery is.
Their willingness to do the easy thing, which is to purchase the equipment.
Right. So showing up anywhere with expensive equipment and then not being able to perform is, well, according to Hagakure, is shameful. But that's,
shameful. It's wasteful. It's an insult to people who have put in the time and the effort to master the craft.
Right. Can't teach willingness.
We've done a good job of exploring this idea of willingness and what it's coming from, but why can't you teach it? What is it about willingness, specifically the willingness to do the hard thing, that makes it so that we can't teach it?
I care about my students. I care about people I mentor. I want the best outcomes for people. But
sure.
That's part of my orientation. I can't want for someone to change enough for them to do it on their own. And that's just a hard reality of, there's a truth to that sometimes me wanting to see somebody else win is a me problem. Because I can't teach willingness. There's nothing I can do to get you to see, other than just be a good example of my own, be surrounded by good examples, or demonstrate mastery. I will show you a way, not the way. But whatever way you decide, it actually has to be effective.
So here's where I'm at on it. Trying to teach somebody willingness is a negotiation. And you can't negotiate a genuine desire. Desire being willingness, right? You can't negotiate genuine influence. We'll draw it out in the math, right? That it has to come from a gradient where they recognize that there is something that you have that they want. And then that will give rise to this desire, this willingness, your influence on them to take the steps to do the hard thing.
It's in the individual's ability to analyze and synthesize what they are observing.
But here's the thing. We can riff on this for a moment. For someone who has the genuine desire to do the hard thing, the thing that's hard is no longer hard. Or at least they perceive that it's not going to be as hard as it may have been. They see it as attainable, at least, to the point that they are willing to pursue it. Whereas before, it seemed insurmountable, in part because they didn't have the genuine desire, the willingness to do it.
Well, is this the having a student compliment, I wouldn't be here without. And that, while it feels good to hear, it's the honest answer that I give to a student or someone I'm mentoring is that I didn't do anything. You did it. You had to do. I just showed you a path. You had to walk it.
Right.
And that is me not taking any credit for their willingness to step 1, show up. Step 2, really lean into it, do the hard thing, learn, analyze, synthesize, fail, win, kind of be effective, figure out why they weren't effective, do the hard debriefs, show up different, change over time, and then create a capacity for themselves where their flight envelope increases and their life improves and they start helping others. And
we have a perfect example of this right now, that we have somebody that we work with who like started asking us questions about fitness, right? Like, how did you guys get big and strong? Like, what can I start to do? And we were answering his questions, but he would push back on those answers. And eventually we're like, you know what? You asked for our opinion and I'm giving it to you, but you're telling me that I'm wrong. So, okay, stay small. Like, fine.
Tiny.
He wants to be Gaston, right? That's what he wants.
right.
But when we give him the answer of what to do, he says, oh, no, that's not going to work for me. Fine. Stay small.
Tiny.
Fine. Stay small.
Like, you came to me, you showed up, like you did step 1. You showed up in the gym. Good job. We were really happy that you were here. And we're happy to answer your questions. But you're telling me, someone who has gone through the process of getting big, getting strong, right? And, might be tuning my own horn, but I think I'm pretty good looking too. I'm beautiful, right?
I mean, it's just, we got to thank your mother for that.
Dad helped too. He's coming to the master and telling the master, no, that's not how we do it. Like,
well, we see that fight a lot. And there's only a handful, it's a short handful of people who are going to seek us out that just do this. And they go, okay, that makes sense. Like, they put in their own analysis.
Yeah, but then do they actually do anything with it? Not always.
Most? No.
They'll agree with us. Yeah, what you're saying makes sense, but they don't have the willingness to do it. But what I wanted to say about this other person is that when I finally came down on him and was like, no, stop. You've asked for my advice. I've given it to you. Now you're telling me that I'm wrong. We're done here. Unless you're willing to actually try the thing that I'm asking you to do. And the really wonderful thing is that he recognized his mistake. And he became teachable in that moment. But it wasn't that he became teachable, it's that he was willing to learn. I can't teach you anything, but you can learn a lot of things. I can show you the path, but if you are not willing to learn, then I can't help you.
There's a philosopher's quote on this. It's one of the Stoics, and has a quote attributed to him about, I can't teach a man anything. I can only teach a man.
Yeah, it's pedagogical experts have talked about whether you can actually teach anything to anybody for a while. Yeah, we can definitely get on the Googles and we can look those things up. But the point is that in that moment, he became teachable. He found a willingness to learn because he recognized the difference between him and me and where he wanted to get to, right? I had something that he wanted. We created the gradient, that genuine influence. We didn't negotiate it. I just told him, I have the answer. If you want it, I'll give it to you. If you don't, we're done here, right? But he changed his orientation so that he could be willing to do, and let's be honest, what I'm asking him to do is not easy. I asked him to buy a book. I asked him to read it. I asked him to try it out, commit to doing 3 days a week in the gym, adding weight each time. I mean, it's pretty simple, but it's not easy. And that was, 2.5 months ago? And boy, have we seen a change.
Yeah, he's like a different dude.
He's a different dude.
And he's on his way to continuing that.
He is no longer the same human. He's a different breed of human. This is where we were hesitating on having this conversation. But I think we can do it now. I think we can navigate it well enough that we're not going to get ourselves kicked off of YouTube or anything like that. So he was one breed of human. Because he's putting in the effort to increase his value, and eventually he'll get the training, he is becoming a different breed of human. And that different breed is going to be far more likely, far more capable in the anthropic domain to survive and replicate. And by process of natural selection, I expect his offspring, whether it's like actual offspring in that he gets married, he has kids, and they become jacked monsters just like he's going to be, or that he just is able to have a legacy and impact on other people, that he's going to create more people in his image, right? Because replication doesn't necessarily have to be biological. It can be through relationships.
Oh, we see him being more influential in his little peer group.
Absolutely.
Because they're asking him, what are you doing, dude? Like, it's noticeable.
Yeah, it's already started.
And he's feeling really good about himself.
And so the people in his peer group who are that old breed of human that love to play their video games, that don't show up to the gym, and if they do, they just walk on the treadmill for 15 minutes and call it good, right? Those kinds of people are not the kind of breed of human that they're not designed for survival and replication. They're invisible. They stay invisible. Where he is going to become big and beautiful, he's going to increase his value in his training, we hope, to the point where he can become influential, that he can act instead of be acted upon.
And it's just one example, but it is as we drew up, it's the muscle piece.
It's one aspect of what's required to become influential.
And
but it's the lowest hanging fruit.
It's the one that you can get on and start making massive gains immediately. And it
increases your flight envelope. It increases your ability to maneuver. It gives you more and more options that you can then exercise your willingness, change your orientation even further, and continue to expand your ability to perform. It all starts with a willingness to do the hard thing.
This piece, just to hit on it, because we've been using that as the example in the first episode that we did, the human inclination to trust other human beings that are healthy and fit.
Yeah.
You need to take care of that piece. And not just purely for the aesthetics, but
if I am concerned about my survival and I need help to do that, am I going to ask the person who is healthy and fit, or am I going to ask the person who is laid out on their bed covered in Cheeto dust?
Well, oh man, we're really getting after this generation now. There's something, man, vibrance is attractive. It looks good on people that take care of themselves. And it's one piece. There's others which we've discussed, and attaining mastery in all those different concurrent levels, the money, muscles, game, frame piece requires more than just showing up.
Yeah.
It requires your dedication to mastery and learning, but being teachable.
But being teachable means that you have made the choice.
Right. I'm giving you this one.
to learn.
It's rare.
It's rare.
And this is why I cannot teach willingness.
Because you can't negotiate genuine desire.
I could teach, right? I could put it out there.
Because teaching is a negotiation. I can impart information to you. I'm going to do that that's what we are doing right now. We are imparting information. We are teaching these people. Thank you for being here. We're glad that you're willing.
We are really excited to teach, but this is the offensive part. This is the part that I've looked at crowds of like 300 and been like,
most of you shouldn't even be
I'd
here.
Be like, only 3 of you will do anything with this. The rest of you, like, this is a feel good. And this is, I think that gets me about things like TED Talks and motivational speakers. And there's almost a point of modo that becomes toxic.
Right.
Like, I felt really good. Now, what do I do with it? Well, nothing. You can't do anything with the thing you just put out to the crowd.
But it was easy to listen to. It was fun and entertaining to watch.
There was a lot of emoting.
Yeah.
In that. Now what? What now changes to the human beings that heard the message, other than I got the adrenaline
They got the dopamine hit.
I got the dopamine hit. That thing sounded really good. But 30 minutes later,
it's worn off. I barely even remember what was said.
I don't even know. It's just,
and I'm on to the next video.
That was motoed, right? And it didn't change somebody's orientation. I would even dare to say it's like, I almost feel like it's another trope to be like, oh, well, you just didn't want it enough. I think it's deeper.
Yeah, it's back to what we were saying. You didn't own it enough. You weren't extreme enough in your ownership.
Yeah, it's deeper.
It's back to CHURN and all that.
It's deeper than that. So I don't know if we will tear this apart because there's answers to this that we're going to get to. And I keep throwing these questions. Some of them are just, in theory, just things for us to kind of wrap on, and others we have some answers for. But why there's a crowd? Okay, 1 in 100. 1 in 100 of you will actually do something with it.
And it's even fewer than that, but keep going. Because this day and age, it's not 1 in 100. It's not, we're not in ancient Greece anymore. We are now in modern day society.
Right. So even for us, right?
We've bred out the willingness.
There's too many margins for safety. You don't have to. Even being, oh man, like modern life, even hanging out in the invisible corner is still better than, I guess, dying and starving. We said is death by invisibility.
Yeah.
But death by invisibility is like a comfortable, fleeting.
Yeah. Thomas Hobbes said that life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short for most people back in the day. Now, let me riff on his quote real quick. It's still solitary. It's still poor. It's not nasty like it was before. Like, because we have so many modern amenities, like we've got air conditioning, indoor plumbing. You can live a life that people from centuries past would be jealous of, even though you're still solitary, you're still poor, you're not engaged in meaningful relationships, you're not replicating, right? So it's not nasty like it was before. Is it brutish? Life isn't violent anymore, which is why we don't have the warrior class. It's not violent like it used to be. It's now violent in a different way. So is it still brutish?
And all these, we'd have to change definitions. I think you could find elements of it.
Well, it's a violence of information, for sure. The anthropic domain, regardless of who you are, whether you're influential, invisible, or anything else, the anthropic domain is congested, contested, and competitive, period. It's wrought with conflict, regardless of your situation.
Like sports, man. There are those who play it, but a majority of them are in the stands being observers of and not taking action to be competitors in it.
Yeah, the arena. They'd rather just spectate. So I would make the argument that life is still brutish. It's still violent. It's full of conflict, just as it ever was. And the last piece of that is it still short? No, because modern technology and medicine and all these things have made it such that we have prolonged life well beyond what it, I guess, naturally would be. And again, I am owning up front that this is terrible. This is an unsavory thing for me to say. There are so many people who live way longer than they are designed to, right? Because of the combination of their hardware, their firmware, their software, they should not still be here. They're not designed for survival or replication. I recognize that as a horrible thing to say.
It doesn't change what the hardware was designed for.
Right.
I mean, it's great that I can look at that from a perspective of, just pure biology and just the, weakest gazelle gets eaten by a fast lion.
Yeah.
The lion's got to eat. Although people find that offensive. Lion's going to eat.
Yeah, but generally speaking, humans don't eat other humans.
Yeah, we do.
But we do, just not in that exact way, not like a lion eating a gazelle. But we will still take advantage of other people. We will take their resources, the things that they have,
right,
and we will incorporate them into our own survival and replication. That happens all the time, everywhere. That is human life. That is existence. And so, do you want to be the one to eat, or do you want to be the one who's eaten? Do you want to act, or do you want to be the one who's acted upon? But that just then goes again to the willingness piece of it. That the 80% of the people who are listening to this right now aren't going to do anything with it.
We wish you would, but that's a me problem
Right.
because you won't.
And then there are the 10 who are just going to be somebody else's target, right? Then there are 9 who we are grateful for them because they put in the effort to try to do something with this information. But it's the one. And at Heracles' time, it was 1 in 100. Now it's probably closer to 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, maybe even more than that. But that doesn't change the fact that we want all 100 of you to do something with this. And we've had this conversation with so many people. Over the last 5 years, we have said that exact thing over and over and over again. But you can't teach willingness.
Can't teach willingness. I did find a couple quotes. This one is attributed to politician Ann Richard and Elizabeth Warren. If you aren't at the table, then you're on the menu. Do human beings eat other human beings? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Shakespearean quote, life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets its hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Man, life's ephemeral. Even saying something is like, see, this bleeds into the toxic positivity, right? Like, your life is short. You really get after it.
Right.
Awesome. What do I do with that? Like, what is the getting after piece?
Yeah, get after what? How? What's the immediate applicability?
Well, and here's the aviation answer. And we've heard this one, right? All thrust, no vector.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
into the ground.
Right. And that's an explosion. Like, wow, very energetic. But where are you going with all of this? You have directional capability. But where's it going? And we are at least offering a model of wrong yet useful that could help somebody achieve something determined by their own orientation to execute things on behalf of their own sovereignty.
Yeah, secure their own sovereignty so that hopefully they can then become that benevolent leader.
But that's hope. That's hope on our side.
Yes.
But the technology is going to be used and exploited.
I used some words that I know I'm not supposed to say. I said hope and I said leader, right? Hope is not a strategy and leadership isn't real. I know.
You can only lead if you have power and influence, which is leadership is a subcategory of.
But what we would want, the thing that we desire, what our orientation has pointed us at, is that people, I can't do, because now I'm going to say should. I can't say that either. People should. It's so hard to not bring in the moral and ethical side of things, right? Which I say there's a place for that. I say it's secondary, but it's still part of it. So I'm just going to say it like I want to say it, right? We are doing this because we want people to want to benefit others. We think people should want to help others. We think that they should take care of themselves first, increase their muscles, increase their money, learn game, establish their frame. We want people to do those things so that they can secure their own sovereignty so that they can turn around and help others. Now,
which is what we hope they'll do with it. And there's the judgment piece.
Yes.
But okay, just taking it down to the math, individuals that would, should, could, all of the, take all these lessons learned, take all the immediate applicability, exercise their willingness, turn into people who have power and influence, use it altruistically, would also not get there without understanding the math, the anthropogenic physics. And that is why we are doing this.
Right.
Because without it, you wouldn't have learned it. And that is just this much measurable good that we can give to the world.
Right.
And give to others.
It will make the difference for the one who is listening to this, who is internalizing, who is going to take it and do something with it.
It is our hope, but there's no guarantee for that.
Right.
But without presenting it, there isn't a chance for that one, the less than 1 in 100.
Right. If
to
we weren't
anything
doing
with it.
this, if we weren't sharing this information, if we had never put together this model called anthroponautics, then that particular person would have never had the information that they needed to up their value and increase their training, to increase their flight envelope and their ability to maneuver within the anthropic domain. That's why we are doing this.
We're going to start getting really intense. Like, we have a list, an episode I'm excited for, of just the tropes. And we are just going to brutalize them.
Right.
And go, everybody's heard this piece of good meaning advice that has kept people stuck in the invisible. And one I'm just going to beat on right now is, Con, I love you, man. Just be yourself. But there are probably certainly times where yourself wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And this is where you needed to change. So just be yourself is terrible advice. Because what if yourself sucks?
Yeah. What if the best that you ever achieved in the gym was a PR on a calf raise?
I knew you were going to go there. Oh, man. That poor kid. He was so happy to share his PR. This is not even a real lift.
I mean, it's in our program right now. We do calf raises,
Yeah, but
we don't try to PR on it.
The new PRs are calf
You
raise.
don't PR on a calf raise because it's not. It doesn't increase your value. It doesn't help.
You're just lying about your top bench press.
But just be yourself. Your PR calf raise, that's good enough. That will be sufficient to help you get through life. Someone down the line is going to want to invest in you in terms of money or emotional commitment or something. They're going to want to have your children. Oh, wait, no, that's not how the world works because nobody cares about your PR calf raise. I'm sorry. Oh, you didn't like that? Okay, then stay small.
Tiny.
Fine, stay small.
Or we can do the air horn. Stay small.
Fine, then stay small.
And people don't like it when you talk to them like that because it messes with their orientation. It shows them that what they are doing is insufficient and that you're calling out the fact that their maneuver envelope is small, that they don't have options. And that's uncomfortable.
Well, there's got to be a mechanism that provides the truth. And it's in the development of the equations of the anthroponautic math. So at least we could point to that. And I always had this piece, and it was get ready, a leadership maxim that I would have my guys look at. And anytime they're trying to mentor teams, it's externalize the scoreboard. Like the standard that I'm trying to communicate to the men and women that I'm trying to get to accomplish something, mission, could be business, is that
Could be dating.
could end. Well, I mean, there's effective levels of effectiveness is to externalize the scoreboard. That just because I'm saying it is not that I'm holding the judgment. It's did you or did you not do the thing? The results matter.
Right.
Intent matters. But now we're backing it to the left, like showing up. It's part of the checklist. But I'm not going to give credit to the race car driver who buckled the seatbelt. Like, it's part of the checklist. Like, you started the engine. It's part of the checklist. You winning the race is the culmination of all of the steps and procedures. People want to stop at I just showed up. But you didn't win. I want you to win. And winning means whatever game it is.
Like, did you accomplish the mission? Ultimately, people only care about results. We may enjoy the conversation about the touchy-feely, like it's not the destination, it's the journey. Like those kinds of tropic wisdom feel good.
But they're on the way. So there is value
Sure.
to it.
Yes.
But ultimately,
yeah, so there's the proximate goal and then there's the ultimate goal. And ultimately is what matters. Yes, we enjoy the proximate. It helps us to move in the direction of the ultimate. But it's the ultimate that ultimately matters. We don't know how gravity works. The function of, like whatever, how gravity does its thing is the proximate thing. But ultimately, we know that gravity enables attraction between objects, and we can use that to ultimately accomplish things like putting someone on Mars or the moon, or even just flying an aircraft requires gravity. We can use that ultimately, but we don't proximately know why.
Something you can dive into in the philosophies and the science, but ultimately putting your head down and trying to figure that out doesn't get results. It's about the applicability of whatever wisdom you're applying, whatever math you're applying. Can you do something with it?
Well, it's, sorry to go the religious route real quick, but to use phrases like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, or it's by their fruits ye shall know them, right? Those kinds of sayings show us it's ultimately what matters.
Is this a good place to enter the maxim or the characteristic that needs to be understood by all men and women, that there is a burden of performance on anyone that wants to call themselves a leader? That
I was hoping you were going to say influential, and then I wasn't going to have to do that.
Okay, then let's back it up. There is a undeniable and always present burden of performance when you become somebody and you achieve power and influence, that your trying isn't enough when there are responsibilities, greater than you. Like, if you're going to take that on, only results matter. And you were never relinquished of your burden of performance.
Right.
Only a very small inner tier is going to care about your efforts. Like, only a small inner tier, like your dunbar layers, your very tight inner tier is going to see the efforts.
Yes.
And they're going to celebrate your wins and losses, but ultimately everyone else gets to celebrate the wins or not, because...
And if you lose, then they're going to try to disassociate themselves from you. They're going to push you further out in their dunbar layers.
So results matter.
Yeah.
And there's no relinquishing your efforts to the end score.
Right.
And that would make sense if we call the anthropic domain contested, congested, and competitive. Just like certain elements of warfare.
Yeah.
Everything is combat.
Yep. At least everything is conflict. We may not engage in actual combat where lives are on the line, but then again, they are.
Do human beings eat other human beings?
There we go. Yeah.
If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Yeah. If you're not paying for the product, then you are the product.
Right. And to fit that into somebody's orientation there's a lot of people we've discussed these ideas with that they almost see it as too dark, that this highlights some real dark part of humanity that, okay,
but are we going to judge it?
No, let's take a moment and acknowledge
dark according to who?
Okay, let's acknowledge it and then see what the math does. And it keeps coming back that this is an uncomfortable truth that you need to make peace with and act accordingly, or don't. Stay small. Or don't, and then you're on the menu.
Tiny.
And at least that piece, there's now a burden of what do you do with this information? I will ignore it. In fact, I will
pretend that it doesn't exist,
or I'll demonize it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be upset at you for calling it to my attention.
Yeah,
because now that I see it, I can't unsee it. But you won't do anything with it. You won't allow it to take on different meaning for your life, so that to create the gradient, to create the change, and willingness is effort.
This is Carl Sagan from The Demon Haunted World. One of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. It's too painful for people to acknowledge that they are small. They're comfortable in their invisibility, and they don't want anybody to call that out to them. because they're not willing. And we're back to the topic of this whole conversation. What started us? We started this whole thing. They're not willing to do the potentially hard thing of becoming influential. And if they are influential, they're not willing to do the hard thing to maintain their influence.
The end discussion, the end point of a lot of these discussions that we would have, especially with big groups of students, was be willing to do the hard things. But that's just where we had to leave it.
Right.
Like that was the mic drop moment that felt good because everyone would nod their head and be like, yeah,
I'm here to do hard things.
Man, I'm really here to do that. And then not. Only one of you will do anything with this. I think it's a good place to.
Yeah. Let Carlos send us off. This has been a production of Anthroponautics, owned and operated by Slate Enterprises. Don't steal our stuff.